everybody, and welcome back to the 12 Days of Page Turners. And yet again, I have brought you 4 amazing authors. So that's enough from hearing from me. So let's dive into our first author of the night. So DC Gomez, come on down. Hey, DC, how are you?
Hi, Miss. I'm wonderful. Hi, Miss Amy. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for all these amazing ladies are hanging out with us. I'm so excited.
Oh, I'm so excited that you could join us this year. So for everybody that doesn't know, tell everybody what genre you write in and the titles of your book.
Absolutely. I'm a multi-genre author. So I do everything from urban fantasy. I have devotionals. I have children's books. And if you're looking behind me, you're going to see Cat Lady. I do a lot of dark humor. So I have several series going on. I have the Intern Diaries, which is 5 novels, 3 novellas. I have an Assassin Shifter new series out, which is the Traitor. It's actually the oldest Assassin, with book 1 being the Hitman, book 2 being the Traitor. For anybody who likes some dark humor with quirky characters, because I do a lot of those, the Cat Lady special, so the Cat Lady series is out, has 2 books. Book 2 is a little murder mystery. So for anybody who wants to figure out who did it, this is the fun part. I have children's books, I have Charlie's Fables, and I have a collection of devotionals. So I do a little bit of everything, Miss Amy.
Wow, I love that. So when did you start writing? When did your first book come out, and what genre was that book?
So I started writing about 20 years ago. So my background's in film and television. So I had been dabbling in writing for a very long time. My first book was published actually in 2017. So I finally took that big leap where everybody says, we're going to stop talking about it. We're going to stop discussing about it. We're going to do it in 2017. So it's been about 6, almost 7 years now in the publishing world, and trying to making sure that, what am I doing? Does it make sense? Am I still following my passion and my love? So yes.
I love that. And the fact that you have like this background, so you've technically been writing for 20 years, and then you took that leap of faith in 17, you said. So what was the first book that you took that leap with?
So I actually have it here. So very first book was Death's Intern. And I kind of joke about it because this book has had several facelifts. So let's just call it what it is. So we went from a book cover that when it first came out, very, I call it baby author trying to figure out what we're going to do. It became that picture, and I loved the cover, and everybody thought it felt like Twilight. And I was like, oh God, this book has no romance. You're going to be highly disappointed if you're aiming for that. It was kind of scary. So then the second cover was a little bit more, okay, in part with urban fantasy, but it screamed a little bit more horror. So people was like, how dark is it? I was like, I have a talking cat, guys. Not very dark. So now we finally hit the whole urban fantasy. So it gives you the action, it gives you the humor, it gives you the fact that characters are quirky. It takes place in Texas, it takes place in Texarkana. So here's the thing. If you had a job offer from death, would you take it? Death knocks on your door and it says, by the way, you killed my previous intern. Totally an accident. She didn't mean to do it. I have to have this huge disclaimer, guys. But if that
happened, it was. Sure.
Pure accident. She's minding her own business as much as you mind your own business on a party, but still. So here's the world of I realize as I write, there's always a knock at the door for me. There's always somebody knocking at the door, and life's changing. And you're going to, what do? Do you take the job? Do you leave your job? Do you, rescue your friends? So you have a little action and adventure. So it became that kind of that adrenaline boost. I was looking to get back to writing. I was looking to get back into being creative. And this book just kind of filled all of those things that I needed in my life. And it's been amazing.
I love that. So how many total books do you have? Because you write in multiple genres. So what is your total book number, and which one is your favorite genre to write in?
So total book number is 20.
Okay.
So we're up to 20.
Nice.
Actually, it's kind of a nice little number for everyone. So it's kind of fun. Most fun to write in. As much as I really enjoy the Cat Lady world, I love the whole dark humor. I like urban fantasy and fantasy as a whole, because I think we have more freedom. So for anybody who writes fantasy, there is the kind of this open space that you still have to create the rules of the universe. You still have to tell where the magic comes from, but you still get to create. So let's be honest, like Isis gets to go to hell in book 3, which for a person who has faith-based background, that was kind of hard. I'm like, how do you create hell? So it's still It was hard, guys. I did a lot of prayers. There was a lot of like, God, I only write these characters. I really don't want them in my house. I felt like I needed to go to confession. I wanted some holy water near me. And I was writing at night. I was like, God, please help me. But it was still, and like I had to talk to like my dream team. I was like, I'm thinking I need to send her to hell. I don't know what to do. They're like, well, you sent her to purgatory already. And I'm like, I'm sure hell's not that big of a deal. And then they reminded me, it's like, by the way, this is your world. You can send her anywhere. I was like, but then how do I get her back? They're like, oh, good luck with that. So this is what happens with friends. Diane is laughing at me. This is what happens when you have friends who believe in you, but not enough to help you. They're like, you're on your own. I was like,
the friendship has limits. The friendship has limits, you know, like I tell my husband at certain times and certain points of conversations, I'm like, look, my love has limits. Okay. I would do anything for you, but I'm not going to do that. Okay. Like, I'm sorry, you're going to have to cut the yard, you know, like my love has limits. So friendships have limits or boundaries, you know, they're going to help you and tell you that, yeah, she needs to go to hell, but they're not going to help you get her out. Like they can't do all the work. I get it. All right. I get it.
That's pretty much my friendship. They were all like, that sounds great. And I'm like, what do you guys think? It's like, yeah, no, good luck. I was like, oh, thanks. So I'm reminded this is why I'm the writer and I get paid for this. The rest of them like, yes, and you're on your own. I'm like, oh, thanks. Thanks.
Nice. Well, so you also mentioned that you have written devotionals. So I could see like where your inner kind of conflict was with sending this character to hell. And then, oh, over here I have devotionals. And it's just like, oh my goodness, like two separate worlds right there for sure. So how many devotionals do you have?
I have a series. I call it the Dare Collection. And for anybody who has that inner challenge of what you're writing, that became really hard for me to do. While I'm very spiritual and I'm very believe in there's a higher power and I believe in Jesus for anybody else. Whatever you believe, I'm a huge supporter. But I also, it's sad and I can admit it, I didn't want to be labeled as a Christian author. And everybody asked, like, really? I was like, I write urban fantasy, guys. You know, it's kind of hard. You know, and became the conversations that I had to be honest with myself. Like, what gives me permission as the girl who's writing about hell and Satan and demons and, you know, vampires to write a devotional collection? And it became during the time that, you know, COVID was hot, everything was pumping. And a lot of my readers needed something more. And I wanted to give them something that was truly for my soul. So the devotionals is 3: Dare to Believe, Dare to Love, and Dare to Forgive. And it comes from the heart. You have a lot of anecdotes about my life and how I got there. But you also get to have something that if you need a scriptures or if you need to write or journal to give you that next level that we're together, that I'm here in this journey. And I was super grateful how well they were received and how well people love them, because it gives them a journey that they're not alone. That, let's be honest, we all say we love people, but we love people that are nice to us. How many of us really love people who are mean to us and can forgive them, you know? And those are the conversations, you know, we're really hard on ourselves. You know, we have no issues forgiving others, but when it comes to ourselves, we torture ourselves for everything we have done in the last 40 years, 20 years, whatever that might be. So this is one of those conversations that you don't have to share with anybody, but you're not alone because I'll be there for you.
See, I love that. So have you ever written more than one book at a time?
I have started outlining more than one. I tried it once and realized my mind does not do that really well. Like, I'm very ADD, but not that ADD, because my OCD kicks in and I can't jump universe that well. So I need to finish one before we can jump into another. And the sad thing is, and I think most of the ladies here on the line is, once you start writing, the millions ideas about everything else jump in. You're like, wait, why didn't you do that? Yeah, see? Katie understands. When you are not writing, nothing comes out. The moment you start, you have 50 ideas about things that make no difference to nobody else. And I'm like, great. How am I going to get this done quickly enough to get to the next book? So yeah, this is my world.
So when you outline more than one book at a time, is that difficult for you if they're different genres? Like I could see being able to outline, you know, like all of your urban fantasy books, because they're not generally the same, but they're all the same genres, right? And especially if they're all kind of built within the same world, that could be beneficial to do. But have you ever outlined more than one book that are in different genres?
The first time I tried to do Cat Lady, I was in between series. So I think we had finished probably either Forbidden War. I was in between the Intern Diaries and picked up Cat Lady. And it became really interesting to remember that there is no magic in this universe that is taking place in common places of this made up city in Texas. So my outlines are kind of like ideally what's going to happen from beginning to end without going into the details. I can, but it's really hard for me to outline a first in a series. I can't do a very beginning book if I'm doing something else. Like my mind still wants to add Constantine or wants to add something else in there. And I'm like, we're officially not going to work. So I have to be very specific.
Yeah, see, I feel like for everybody on here, I mean, you guys have watched 9 days. This is day 10. So everybody on here generally knows, or that's watching knows, I'm not a writer. Okay. I live through you guys. I've lived vicariously through you guys, and for, well, good reason. Okay. If you get my emails, which all of you guys have for this whole thing, you understand my grammar and like commas are just going to be the death of me. Okay. Like I just ignore where commas should or are lacking. Okay. I'm just saying grammar wasn't my thing. But if I was outlining or writing a book, I feel like I would not be able to write more than one at a time, just because I would, if we're being completely transparent, I would forget what book I'm on and be like, oh yeah, this is so great, writing like Greek mythology and it's all like an urban lit, and you're like, what is this? Like, oh, I'm telling you, I wouldn't be able to do it at all. So I'm talking, kudos to you for attempting it. I could not do that.
It gets a little easier as you're writing within the same series because you know the characters. And it does take a little while to get it back into their heads. It's very much, I have made a rule to myself. Either I'm going to do Isis or I'm going to do Angela, which is the cat lady, in first person. Nothing else. Like I cannot commit another first person book for anybody else, just because my mind is like, I don't want to be that involved in people's heads as I am in these two ladies. So all my other books are coming to be third person just because I need that separation. So it's interesting to see how my writing and my series are evolving just to give me that separation and that mindset that I'm not going totally crazy.
Hey, you know what? We're all crazy. If anyone ever says that they're sane, they're lying. Okay. I've decided like they're lying or we don't need to be friends, because I'm loony and crazy every day and I embrace it 100%. Like, so what is coming up for you?
So I owe book 3 in the Hickman's trilogy. So that's the big one that I'm currently working on. The process of outline is done. The book is getting ready to actually decide. I'm making a decision whether I'm going to do a Kickstarter for book 3, since it's the end of that series, or straight publish it. So I'm halfway writing that book and definitely getting ready to decide how it's going to come out. Like I want to do a Kickstarter because I want to do the fancy things that comes with it, really add some pictures to it. So I might do that as a really fun campaign before actually publishing out there.
I love that. Well, so the 12 Days of Page Turners is all about holiday promotions. So what is your holiday promotion this year?
So because I'm trying to experiment and figure out what works for DC as an author very well, I actually did something this year that I never thought I would take a full leap, and I went wide. So you can find all my books in all available distribution centers. So I'm going to do 99 cents for both Death and Plague, which is book 1 and book 2. So you can tell I can't figure out which one I'm doing. So you're going to get them 99 cents in all major outlets. So you can get them at Apple, Amazon, you name it. So I'm super excited because I finally decided to put all my works where everybody can find them. So this is how we're celebrating. And I'm glad to announce it here with you first.
Oh, well, I am honored. I'm so excited that you got to join us this year, DC, because it's always so much fun to talk to you. So thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to come and hang out with all of us.
It's always a pleasure. And thank you so much for having us, Amy. You're amazing.
Oh, anytime. I try. Well, coming up next is going to be Katie Marie. So, Katie, are you ready?
I was born ready.
Yes. I love that answer. That is such a great answer. So, Katie, tell everybody what genre you write in and the title of your book.
I am a self-described horror enthusiast and horror writer. Shockingly enough, I write in horror. I have been given the label of tender-hearted horror, however. I don't really tend to write blood, guts, and gore. I tend to look at a more psychological or a paranormal side to the genre. So I'm like in that little subgenre pocket.
Oh, okay. So you had me at psychological. Okay. My degree's in psychology. This is why I said everybody's crazy. I'm here for it because I'm crazy. But what is the title of your book before we dive into that avenue?
The title of my latest novella is A Man in Winter, and it does dip into the psychology side of it, as my main character, Arthur, the protagonist, has dementia.
Oh, So what was that like writing? Okay, I'm in this. I'm sorry. We're going to dive into that. We're going to dive into this whole thing. Okay. What was that like writing a character that has dementia? Do you have experience like a family member that has that, or did you do a lot of research? What kind of went into writing that character?
I don't have a family member that I'm aware of that has dementia. I mean, I don't check
Oh,
in every
good.
day, but nobody has it yet.
Good.
The connection I had with dementia is that I used to work in the legal profession. I was there for the better part of a decade. And a big part of my work there was private client work, which is where you sort out people's estates, you do wills, lasting powers of attorney, things like that. So I would see a lot of people when they were in the very early stages of a diagnosis, because unfortunately, wills, lasting power of attorney, they're the kind of job that everybody puts off, kind of like taxes. And you leave it until you absolutely have to deal with it. And the only time people think they absolutely have to deal with it is when they get a diagnosis of something that's either terminal or something like dementia, where you're going to lose capacity and you're not going to be able to deal with your estate for much longer. I'm so cheerful. And yes, sorry, we're supposed to be so happy and jolly, and here I am bringing it down immediately, talking
No,
about everyone
I
losing
love
their
it.
minds or dying.
No,
Great.
I love it though, because it is true. I mean, like you said, a lot like taxes, but it is true in the fact that we all put like these things off, because when you're young and stuff, you kind of just feel like you're going to live forever, right? None of these things are ever going to happen to you and you're invincible. And then the next thing you know, you're like 50 or 60 and you're having to really think about these things. So no, like it's, I'm 31 and I'm proud of it. And I have not thought of these things, and I'm going to be completely transparent, and I probably should, right? Like
See, a lot
my
of
grandfather has, yeah, exactly. Like my
Mhm.
grandfather has dementia, right? So it's one of those things that's, hopefully it doesn't happen to me, but it's, one of those things that is in my family. But writing a character like that from your background and stuff, what was that like? Was that like labor intensive, or what was that kind of process like for you?
Well, Arthur was effectively an amalgamation of all of the really lovely people that I got the opportunity to work with. I got to talk to them about a lot of different things, not just paperwork, because that would have been very dull. And he was basically built from them. So I took parts of conversations I'd had with them, things they told me that they were worried about, things that they were happy about, and I sort of mushed it all together to create a hopefully competent character. But it was really tricky in places, to try and basically write somebody who is a really unreliable narrator, because what he thought was happening might not be what was actually happening. And you kind of want to hint at that so that your audience is like a bit suspicious of what Arthur's saying, but you don't want to give it away. So you don't want to be too heavy handed. You don't want to make him unreasonable or unrealistic. So it was really tricky to try and get the balance right between making him a believable person who you cared about, but also sort of foreshadowing that, yeah, his grasp on reality isn't quite what it should be.
Yeah, because I can imagine that just being incredibly difficult to write. I mean, I can just picture myself and I'd be like, wait, but is this really happening? Like now I just don't know. Like now I feel like this is what's really happening, like for me. So I wouldn't be able to do it. So I can only imagine writing that character and being able to hint at, those, that maybe this isn't really like
Side
what he's
characters are
doing.
your friend. At least they were
Oh,
my
okay.
friend. Arthur has a daughter, and
Okay.
it was through her that like I did a lot of the questioning, and like maybe things aren't, because you believe when Arthur tells you because the story's in his head, and then his daughter would come in and be like, maybe no.
Yeah, this
Why-
isn't what happened. This isn't what's going on, Dad. I'm sorry. Like, pop
Where
your
are you?
bubble. Yeah. Well, so tell us a little bit about, because from just your description of it, I know it has, he has dementia and stuff. I'm getting like Gone Girl vibes, which was to me almost the scariest like film. I watched the film. I know I cheated. I didn't read the book. I'm sorry. But it was to me the scariest thing because it's something that could really happen. Like I find those to be the scariest books or movies that I've read or watched, the fact that these are things that in real life could really happen, like psychological disorders or like dementia. And that dementia in itself is scary, right? Because you don't, as a person, you don't really know like where you're at or what's going on. So like to me, I find those to be so scary. So tell me a little bit about Man and Winter and kind of what that whole storyline is before we dive deeper kind of into it.
Cool. Yeah, so spoiler free as much as possible. Um,
Yes.
Arthur's wife died before the start of the book. She died 2 years before the start of the book in very tragic circumstances. There was a home invasion. It went horribly, hideously, hopelessly wrong, and she did not survive as a result. And the book kicks off basically with Arthur's Molly coming back to him and saying, yeah, the police, they got it wrong. That's not what happened. There's more for you to go and investigate. You need to like show everybody the truth of what happened. So the whole way through the book, you don't know if this is Arthur's illness progressing, because he's been through quite a lot, and stress does exacerbate things like this, or if he is really being visited by the ghost of his wife. So yeah, it's not quite Gone Girl levels of
No, but I feel
but
like that's
it's
worse
in
though.
there.
Like, oh, I feel like to me that's like more scary because you're like, oh, I want him to be visited by his wife. Like, I want that, but is that really like what's going on? Like, to me, it's almost worse because you have like the love of someone so deep, but then they pass away, and you don't want to accept what has happened, and so you create, not that this is what your book's about, but in my mind, right? Because now I'm just running with it, but it's like you create a whole like side story that like keeps them kind of in your life, and that they didn't really like leave the way that they did. And to me, I feel like that's scarier because I would totally do that. I would do this. So yeah, that's
This is
scarier to
it.
me.
It's there is a lot of guilt there because Arthur wasn't home when the home invasion happened. He was in hospital getting his hip replaced, poor boy. So he knows realistically that had he been there, he probably wouldn't have been able to fight off home invaders because he's a very old gentleman with like a dodgy hip and a drinking problem, quite frankly. But at least Molly wouldn't have been by herself. And then when she pops up and she's asking him to do something, he sees this as like his chance at redemption. Like I can not fail you this time, type deal. So yeah.
See, oh my gosh, I relate so much. So, okay, I'm gonna have to get this book, okay, from Bridget Gates Press. I'm gonna have to do it because it's very much me. Like, I can totally see myself at like that age, and just like, I don't know, if my husband goes, I told you my love has limits, okay? But if my husband just goes for some reason and it's like an odd thing, I'm totally gonna blame myself and be like, no, that's not really what happened. This is what happened. I'm telling you, I can relate to that 100%. So, tell us a little bit about the background. How did this story kind of come about for you, where you wanted to write it? Did it just pop up? I've had some that it's like in their dreams. What was that process like for you?
It was sort of a combination.
Oh, okay.
I was literally walking home from work one day. I think I'd probably been dealing with, well, I say dealing with, that's a horrible way to phrase it. I had been talking with some clients, and I used to get quite upset sometimes because it was really tragic. Some days were harder than others. And I
Yeah.
remember walking home, and Arthur basically just walked into my head fully formed. Not literally, that would have been painful, but he walked in and he was there fully three-dimensional himself with his dodgy hip and his hip flask that he thinks that nobody knows about, but yeah, everyone knows about it, Art. And he was basically walked in and started talking about his Molly. And then from there, I had
Oh.
to do like outlining and figuring out what was actually going on. But like Arthur himself was basically, I didn't really have to do any work.
It just kinda came about. See, I love that. I am lacking in that, but I love that that's generally kind of, and all the authors that I've talked to in all the years that I've done this and stuff, there generally is like a common thread where their characters come in their dreams and they're like, "No, my name is this." And you're like, "What? When did this person appear?" You know? Or like their whole like story just happens and they have to wake up and they have to just write it. And so I'm always fascinated to know kind of where the idea came about. 'Cause it's different, but there's always a similar kind of aspect where it's just kind, like you said, just walked into your head, right? It's like
Yeah.
one of those things for sure. So why horror, and why psychological horrors, how I'm going to label that, because I love that. But why did you pick that genre? Is it the one that you love to read or watch, or it just fascinates you? Kind of what led you towards that genre?
It's my mum's fault. In a nutshell,
Okay.
it's
Okay.
entirely my mum's fault. When I was very, very young, sorry, um, my mum used to read me bedtime stories.
Okay.
Only my mum wanted to read things to me that weren't like that she was interested in as well. She was trying to find common ground, I guess, with like little 3, 4-year-old Kate. And she read me The Thief of Always by Clive Barker, which is an amazing book. It's still to this day one of my absolute favorites. For those who don't know, it's a story about a wee lad who decides he doesn't like his life and off he trots to go somewhere else, and he ends up in this house. And you're thinking like, oh, this is going to be like Narnia and stuff, and it's like,
Yeah.
no.
Oh,
The house portrays itself in a very Narnia-esque kind of way. It's very magical. In the morning it's springtime, and then you get summer, and then in
okay.
the evening it's autumn, and at night it's winter. So you get like Halloween every day. Every night is Christmas. This is fantastic. And
Okay.
yeah, it's not. There's the house is basically like a spider's web. It's luring Kiddywinks in, and no spoilers, but it's not great what happens to them if they don't get out very quick. It's got like
Oh
a
my goodness, it
Lovecraftian
sounded
kind of thing
fabulous.
going
It
on.
sounded fabulous,
Oh,
though.
it's a fantastic book, and it's really short as well. And yeah, it's got illustrations that you can show your child as you read it to them when they're far too young.
Oh, nice.
And
Okay. See, I have a 3 and a 4-year-old, so you're telling me I need to read this story is
oh
what you're
yeah,
telling me.
yeah,
Okay,
we
I'm
need
down.
more we need more fanatical horror obsessed children. Come on.
Yeah, I'm down for it. I could totally make that happen. I'm 100% down for it because you had me at all the different seasons within the same
Mm,
day. Because here in Texas, it's like summer and then like
forever.
mild summer and maybe rain and a random ice storm, and then we're back to summer. Okay, like we don't have seasons down here, so you really had me at at the seasons. I was like, this is where I want to go.
It's
Oh
such a
my
fairy
goodness.
tale, and then it goes really dark really fast.
Oh,
Sort
oh
of
my
goes
goodness.
off the deep end a bit. It's, oh no.
Oh my goodness. Well, so is A Man in Winter, is that your only novel? Do you have more works coming soon? Tell us what's
I
new for you.
I do have a few. Man in Winter is currently my best one, I like to say, she says, to
I
date.
like it.
I have various short stories that have been published in many anthologies, like they are behind me to this side. Sorry, the camera's backwards, it's weird. I also have a novel that is out to agent at the moment, and another novella that is with an editor. So hopefully Man and Winter will have some friends out in the publishing world soon.
Nice. Well, so for the 12 Days of Patienters, it's a holiday promotion. So what are you offering this holiday season?
All of my ebooks on my Amazon account will be down to 99 cents.
Wonderful. So they can just type in Katie Marie on Amazon and they can find it. I believe that they can also go to one of your publishers, Bridget Gates Press, and get their version there as well. Is that right?
That is very correct.
Right. I love it. Well, Katie, thanks for joining us this evening and
Thank
hanging
you
out.
for
I
having
love
me.
it.
It's
Oh,
lots of fun.
awesome. Coming up next is Miss Diane, or Mrs. Claus, as I like to call it. I like
Miss
your
Claus,
outfit.
it's Christmas.
I love your outfit, Diane. Well, Diane, tell everybody what genre you write in and the title of your book.
Sure, I'll be happy to. Thank you, Amy. And hello, other authors, for being with us today. I'm so excited that we're all here. And it's really fun to hear books, that are for grown-ups too, because hey, Christmas is for everyone. So whoa, scary. So yay for these other authors. But for my books, so I write predominantly children's books, but I have a couple of young adult historical fiction books, and I'm very excited about those. Today, I'm going to concentrate on my children's book. So we have Boomer that we'll talk about later, and Charlie and his adventures. And anyway, I have about 11 children's books out now, so it's really quite fun. I love to be in the children's world, as a former classroom teacher.
11? We're already up to 11? Man, okay. I remember it when it was like, I want to say like 6. I think it was 6 is like when I remember it, but you've pumped out a lot of books here recently. So I'm so excited for you. And Boomer is one of my kids' favorite book. So they pick it out. We read it at least twice a week. And they love it. They love the little bunny Boomer. They absolutely love it. And your love for children is amazing with your little sunflower in the background. I love it. Diane, I love it. So what made you want to write children's books? Because I find those to be extremely difficult with illustrations and what age range that you're writing for. So what made you want to write children's books?
Thank you for the question. Well, I've always been a storyteller, and being an I taught preschool through 8th grade. Um, Teaching young children, especially, you always had circle time, so I was always right, telling stories. And then as a mama, I loved making up stories with my kids too, so we always had a blast doing that. So it was a really natural progression, as well as stage work and so forth. So stories has always been sort of a passion. Children's books come naturally to me, I think, because I just love imagination. I love happiness and love, and I really wish adults could try to recall those moments in time that they just loved, how you're so free your mind is as a child. So I like to think that when my parents or loved ones reading to their loved one, that they can also step back in time and just be free for a moment and find peace, love, and happiness, and to love themselves, because that's what my books are about. Embrace an imagination, to love yourself, peace, etc.
See, I love them. So when I read to my kids, and I feel like most people, because you guys are authors, I feel like all of you guys can relate to me. My husband cannot relate to me, but I feel like you guys can. You guys are my people. Okay. When I read the books, I always like my tone of voice ebb and flows on different like exciting parts and like sad parts and different characters. Right. And my daughter really likes the Pinkalicious books. Pinkalicious, Silverlicious, Emeraldlicious. We have all of the liciouses, okay? Is what we have. But there's always like a lesson to be learned in there. So I usually kind of try to use the same tone within it. And so the whole point of the story is my husband was reading them Boomer the other day. And he doesn't do that. He's very monotone. Okay. My husband's an engineer. So if you know any engineers, you understand I'm pretty monotone. Okay. And he's reading it and they're like, Dad, can you just go get Mom? Because you just no, like you're just I'm done with you. Like you just aren't making the story fun,
Yeah,
And I feel like
yeah.
that's to be honest, I learned that with your books though, because your books are children's books and the way that you read them, I feel like you really can kind of accentuate what your point is and the whole kind of process, but you can get them to learn and enjoy reading, and that reading can be fun and all the voices and stuff kind of in there. But I learned that a lot with your book. Charlie and the Tires Swing, I believe is the name of it. I'm always like Charlie and the Tire Swing. I think they go together, right? I know what the cover looks like, So I learned it with that one because I was like, oh man. And then like your is the title of it Song About Peace?
Yes, you're doing so well.
I know I'm remembering books, people. Oh my gosh, I'm remembering books. But because I have all of your books, Diane, I'm secretly a groupie of yours. Okay, it's secret until now, but I have all of your books. I try to support everybody as best as I can, but my kids love them, and so I truly didn't start doing the ebbs and flows and all of that until I started reading your books. I was like, oh man, this would be so much better if I just like did this and they would get it. And then like we all just leave happy and excited. My kids don't want to go to bed. And I'm like, oh, darn it. I read that too good. Like I read it too good. And I feel like that is what I hear a lot kind of draws authors to want to write children's books, is because you always have like that kind of excitement about it, and like the little kids reading, whether they can read or not. Like my girls can't read, but you can kind of tell a fun lesson within that. And so I got a lot of that from your books, but you're just a positive person anyways. Like I need to record you reading one of your books. Okay. Like we need to record that, Diane.
Oh, that's so
for
sweet.
sure.
So sweet.
But you also have you have children's books, and that's where your heart is, and I know that's where we're focusing. But I also want to talk about your I believe is it a historical fiction book or your Rise series? I don't know what genre
you're right. It's a young adult historical fiction, and this past November, my sequel to Rise: A Girl's Struggle for More. So now Ruby Takes Chicago. And that it took a long time to write, and so for all the historical fiction people, I mean, my I bow down to you, because there's a lot of research you have to do, and I really wanted to ace it, right from the beginning. And it's actually based on my grandma's life. And I wanted to, I'll back up for a moment. Um, as you know, Amy, I've lived in a lot of different countries and have traveled around the world teaching or doing humanitarian work. And I'm also in the schools. And so one of the things that I saw was common throughout a lot of the schools was like, well, I don't need to dream that much about what I want to do. The government's just going to tell me. And that was a very foreign thing for me to hear. And so, and I knew in some of these countries, you can dream here and be what you want to be. So I decided I really wanted to write a book to inspire young people to dream and go after their dreams. And it might be difficult, but you can do it. Because if a woman born in 1904, who's what we call today a teenager, they didn't have teenagers back in those days. That word didn't exist. You were either a child, and once you went through puberty, you were an adult, period, end of story, and you got married, especially if you were a girl. And so here in was my grandmother, and she was blessed to have her parents that believed no, education was very important, but she wanted to go to college too, and they're like, yeah, no, it's time to get married. And she's like, yeah, no, not going to happen. And so she works very hard to make her dreams come true. And so long story short, the way she goes about it and the fun things that she did, and like, how many people do you know run away to go to college, right? so so I think it just really inspires people. And then she takes Chicago. Woohoo!
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. I haven't been to Chicago. I'm not a traveler. See, yet again, I'm gonna live through all of you guys, okay? Because you guys are all over the world and y'all travel. Texas is big enough for me, okay? I don't need to go anywhere else. I'm content for sure. But I love that. But I feel like the reason that I brought up Rise, because I know one came out, your book two came out in November. But the reason I brought it up is because I feel like the theme for all of your books that you write in multi genres now, you go girl, is inspiration. You love to inspire everyone at all ages. Because I feel like as an adult, I enjoy your children's books. And as an adult, I also enjoyed your historical fiction books. So I feel like you appeal to children and adults, but the whole main theme is inspiration and just love, which you just embody. So that's why I'm like, oh, I love this. Okay, Diane wrote it. Yep. Okay, I'm on it. I got it. It's going to be my motivation for the week.
Oh, you're so sweet. So
Oh,
sweet.
well, I'm just being honest. I'm keeping it real, right? We're just being honest 100%. But tell us a little bit about Boomer. I know what Boomer is about, but tell us a little bit about Boomer and then what is next to come.
Sure, I'll be happy to. So this is Boomer for those. Isn't he adorable? And the illustrator's up in Maine. She's incredible. She's done several of my books. And Boomer, you know, bunnies have large families, and all his brothers and sisters are so happy and content just being in the forest, chilling and eating and watching the squirrels and chasing them. But Boomer, there's this path, and people are like walking down it and running it, and he's like, I wonder what's out there. So Boomer decides to explore because he's a curious little bunny, and so he discovers all these little things, and he gets outside of the forest. He's like, whoa, what just happened to my world? Like rain's coming from the ground, right? And of course, because he's never seen a sprinkler. And so the story, you see it all from Boomer's eyes. So even when he sees human beings, he's like, he only can see like a little bit of the legs and the shoes. He's like, those are the funniest paws I've ever seen, and hopefully it makes the children laugh. And what I really love about the story too is it helps children with recall, because all of a sudden Boomer's like, after seeing that bird, I really kind of want to go home. And so, he has to go like, what did I see last? And so I can just see all the children with their family going, okay, yeah, he saw the sprinkler, he saw the gentleman, he saw the kite, he saw the tire. And so they're like, and that's very important for children in comprehension. And that's the teacher and me coming out, having them do that recall is very important.
See, I definitely get it because, Boomer goes on this huge adventure, and then when he wants to go home, he has to recall, like his path and all the things that he saw to get back home, which my daughter's like, we always play like kind of like a Where's Waldo, but like, oh, well, what do we need to see to go back home? Right? We always play like those games because I personally like those games, so I make my kids like them too. Make my kids like them
That's
too.
good.
It makes the time go by for sure. But what is next for you, Diane? Do you have more children's books coming out? Do you have another rise? What's next for you?
I'm kind of like DC. Once a character gets into your brain, so DC, holler if you think I'm correct. And then it's like, "No, I want to say some more. So there's going to be. Turns out I thought I was finished with Boomer, but Boomer says no, you're not. And so I'm working on a couple of more Boomers, and then I've written and sent to the publisher some more Charlie adventures, so that's exciting. And I just have all kinds of stories that are coming out, and I wake up in the middle of the night, and my husband goes, "Not again." I go, "I can't help it. The angel said I needed to get up and write." So
I
I have a
love it.
feeling I have a background a lot like DC because I know exactly what DC was saying. Purgatory. I was like, "Yeah, holy water." So my husband's like, "Oh my gosh, can you tell your angels to let you sleep?"
I love it. I love it. Well, so tell everyone what your holiday promotion is this year.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So, the publishing company is Norrin's Triad Publications, and they're going to run a special on my books, and especially the ebook for 99 cents. So I'm very excited. And the rest on Amazon, the ebooks and so forth, will be at 99 cents. So, yay! And yeah, and the paperbacks for Charlie and the hardcover will be at a special as well. So check them all out.
Nice. Wonderful. Well, Diane, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's always such a delight to talk with you and see what's new and what's going on.
Well, thank you. It's been such a pleasure. And I hope everybody has a beautiful Christmas. And make sure if y'all were all here, Mrs. Claus would be making you hot cocoa, and have a happy new year.
Yes, absolutely. Well, coming up next is Stephanie Ellis. Your name just goes. Like, I can't just call you Stephanie. It's Stephanie Ellis. Like, Stephanie Ellis is in the room. Okay. Like, that's how we're doing it. So, Stephanie, tell everybody what genre you write in and the title of your book.
Well, normally people say I write in the horror genre, and I have said I'm a horror writer, but I'm sort of shifting back a little bit more towards saying dark fiction now because I don't want to be pigeonholed. So I'd say I'm a writer of dark fiction and dark poetry. And the dark fiction, yes, it's horror, but I'm shifting away a little bit as well so I can expand. Not writing children's books or anything yet, so you're safe there. But I'd love to write cozy crime, something like that. But at the moment, it's folk horror, gothic horror, post-apocalyptic horror, and some dark poetry. Currently doing a horror novella in verse, so there's quite a variety there. And the book that I'm sort of focusing on at the moment is The Woodcutter, which is my most recent folk horror.
I love your cover for that book because it's just like, I know. It just makes me like, I want to know. It just, I mean, I know that this isn't what it's about, but it just gives me axe murderer vibes and I'm here for it. Like, I'm like, yes. Like, I don't know why. Like, you guys are totally in my dark part of my mind. So no judgment. Okay. I know it's the holidays, but okay. I'm just saying. So it gives me that. So when I saw it, when we launched it, I had to grab it. So I was like, I've got to read this book. And I love that you're venturing kind of out into dark fiction instead of just horror, which I love. So where did your love for horror and dark fiction kind of come about for you that you wanted to start writing in it?
I think when I read a lot of books when I was, from a very early age, I was reading books that were older than my years, I should say. My parents were always working, so I would tend to pick up my parents' books that were lying around. So I would read a lot of my mum's fiction. I read Catherine Cookson very early on, Jean Plaidy, Georgette Hare, sort of 9, 10. And then my mum, she she's a Charles Dickens fan, and she said that when she was expecting me, she read a lot of Charles Dickens at the time, and that's where I got my love for Charles Dickens from. I don't know whether that's true or not, but when I was about 11, I was picking up his books from the library, and I was being given them for Christmas. And there is a darkness to Dickens. Yes, there's a humour in there, but it's very much a social commentary. And I found that I liked books that went into the darker side of humans, the way they behaved, the way they treated other people, the thought processes behind that. And I veered away from all the romantic fiction that my mum had on her shelf. I think I had one disastrous summer on Mills and Boon reading those and thinking, oh my God, I can't read these. There has to be this darkness in there. And I stayed with what I would call dark literature. So yes, I did Dickens. And when I was about 16, I started reading Dostoevsky and various Russian authors, as you do, and probably not understanding it properly at the time. But I just loved that overall feeling of gloom and doom. And then later teens, early 20s, I discovered the horror writers, Stephen King, Dean Koontz. I came to that later. So been a very long-winded and roundabout way of getting there. And writing, when I began that, it just seemed to be the place that I could write. I can't write light-hearted fiction. Well, I can do a little bit, but not lots of it. I always end up going down a sort of dim, dark path and not very many happy endings.
Okay, so as someone that loves horror books and being scared mostly psychologically, just because that's how my mind works, I love that because not everything has a happy ending. Like for me personally, like big romance books that have a happy ending and all of those, I can't read those. For me personally, I have to have, like a psychological thriller or something kind of similar to that. So it's those things kind of work for me, but I can relate to you about like the doom and the gloom. There's just something appealing about that where you're just like, oh, well, why is it like that? For me. So what made you want to dabble in writing in that genre? I know you like to read it. So is that what kind of gave you the inspiration behind your first story that you wanted to publish, or what is the story there?
That was all very accidental. When I started writing, I did come to writing later in life. So I'm 59 now, I'll be 60 next year. So anyone around my age, if they think they've left it too late, you haven't. You can do it. But about 10, 11 years ago, just before that, I'd started having a go at writing, and I did a short story writing course. And they said, yes, you can write, but your voice wouldn't fit women's magazines. I can't do stories about firemen rescuing kittens and things with trees, or love stories or anything like that. They said you'd be better off in competitions. And anyone who's a writer knows, you look at the writing competitions, they charge a fortune. And I thought, no, I can't afford that, but I want to write and I want to see if I can make my way anywhere. So I got Writers News magazine, and they would have little call outs in the listings. And there was a call for a horror anthology with the stories based on potatoes. Potatoes had to fit in somewhere. So I wrote a short story called Death is Not a Potato, and it's set during the Leningrad siege during the Second World War, when people were starving. So there was that historical aspect in there. And it was a very dark story, but they said it wasn't horror, although it felt like that to me because I hadn't written in the horror genre as such. But they liked my style, and they said, well, write for another call. And so they put out these other calls. I wrote for them and they accepted them. And then it just carried on from there. It just seemed to be, yeah, I found my home, and it was accidental. And I had so much fun. I use horror as a way of enjoying a little aspect of revenge. There's so much around us when you go out and about and you see things happening and nobody seems to say anything, or you think, why are they getting away with it? And I write these little stories, and there might be somebody in there and they've done something that I've actually seen around or seen on telly, and they get their comeuppance. So there's a little bit of that in there as well. So it's a little bit of fun.
See, I love that, like in the whole aspect, and kind of doing what works for you and then having like that kind of fun. I feel like I would do that. I can't outline like DC. You said that you outline. if outlining was a grade in school, I would have failed it. I don't know how you fail an outline, but I would never keep to it. Like, in English, you have to write all these papers, right? And you have to outline them. And I would never stick to my outline. So I would fail. Okay. So outlines will be the death of me. I can't do outlines. So Stephanie, yes, I'm with you. Yes, I'm 100% in with you. 100%. So what I'm dying to know, and I don't know if I've asked you this before because I helped you with your launch and we talk quite frequently, but I want to know, where did the idea and the inspiration come for the woodcutter? How did that kind of come about? Where did you, like, I'm dying to know, and I want to know, and I don't feel like I've ever asked this, and I want an answer. Stephanie, I want an answer.
I wanted to do another folk horror that was different to the Five Turns of the Wheel universe. I've got a couple of books behind me on the shelf there, and that is folk horror and dark fantasy, and it is a series, and I love writing in it. But I wanted to do a different type of folk horror. There's a few threads in there that I wanted to include. One was that I wanted to have places with names that meant something and that have a little bit of a cozy feel to them. I've watched crime dramas. I don't know if any of you have watched Midsummer Murders over here,
Yes.
but you have all these little villages with strange names, and you think, well, those are believable names, so I'm going to do this. So I came up with the idea the woodcutter is in an area where the village is Little Hatchet, and then the woods around it called God Begone Woods, and the area is called the Devil's Axe. So I was bringing in that cozy vibe to my folk horror. So I thought, yeah, I can do that. And then the other aspect was that a few years back, I saw Darren Brown's TV show on Channel 4 here, and it was about convincing this man that there was a zombie apocalypse and he was the last human. And Darren Brown is somebody who can hypnotize people or control their thoughts. I don't know if you've seen or heard of him in the US, but he did this. And I thought, I'd love to do something like that within my book, bring in a reality show element and manipulate people's thoughts. So even the characters that I'm telling a story through, they think certain things are happening, but they're not sure. And then even when they think they've worked it out, something else happens. So nobody really knows what's going on. And I certainly didn't when I was writing it. So I just glad it all came together. So there's that aspect of it, because so much of today has been turned into reality shows. You see things put up on YouTube and all sorts all the time. So I wanted to bring in that aspect of modern day living, but in a folk horror way. And to do that, I needed to bring in some sort of ritual, some sort of legend. So I did have a short story, and it was the idea of Little Red Riding Hood, but it's very much with the woodcutter and grandma, and the Red Riding Hood as a piece of clothing, but not necessarily the girl herself. So I was retelling Little Red Riding Hood, and I expanded that in the story. So there is a legend of grandma and a legend of the woodcutter, and it was discovered in these ancient pamphlets, because again online you can see a lot of digitized 16th 17th century woodcut pamphlets, and they have really bizarre images of devils and witches from back then during the time of the Puritans, and they have these little snippets of stories underneath. And I thought that would be a great starting point for the legend of the woodcutter and grandma to be discovered. And then when they create this reality show in the village to try and raise money for it, because rural areas are often hard done by in terms of prosperity and everything else these days, they are forgotten a bit. So there's reality shows to raise money for the village, and it's based on this old legend. And I just had a lot of fun bringing in things that I enjoy discovering. I love place names. I love people's names and language. I've started learning Old English yet again. I keep trying to learn it, but I've started, and I'm up to chapter 5 now, and just learning words and seeing what words exist in our language now that came back from the Anglo-Saxons and the Celts. And I've been putting those in some of my books, in the 5-term books. I've got names of characters that I can't pronounce, but they mean something in early language. It's just bringing in all my interests, really, and trying not to bore anybody in the process.
No,
Wow.
I love that. And you had me at convincing this guy that he survived the zombie apocalypse, and he was the only one. Like, I know I'm probably going to be the odd person out, but I truly believe that a zombie apocalypse is going to happen one day, and I'm going to be prepared. Okay. Like, I'm fully in that whole thing. So you had me at that. But I love how you took like this whole like popularity with reality shows and all these things that are going on and manipulated that into your story. And it was kind of a play on Little Red Riding Hood that kind of played into it, but it was like the reality show kind of part it. And then the woodcutter with that cover, like now that you have given me like that full explanation, your cover fits beautifully. And it is like, that's a damn good idea. Like, I'm just gonna say it's a damn good idea. And I love that you took all the things that you like and manipulated them into this book. So Stephanie, I love it. We are on the same page. We are like the same person. I love this. This is where I love. This is why I love the 12 Days of Page Turners, because I get to talk with so many amazing authors, their inspiration behind it, but kind of what makes them tick. Like not in a bad way, like not like a bomb, like you guys are going to go off, but like makes you tick and what keeps you inspired and your creative juices running, right? And like reality TV for you, and it involved into this story, which I love. And now you want to branch out and do dark fiction and cozy. Like, I love it. I'm here for it. And the show that you said, what is it? Midsummer Murders. My mother watches that show. And when I go to visit my mom, so over here, it's called BritBox is what I don't even know if it's like an application, but it's a streaming service. And so that's how my mom watches Midsummer Murders. And she always makes me sit down and watch it with her because my mom loves crime shows. So I have seen that show. So when you mentioned, I was like, yes, I know this show. I know it. Like, I'm so proud of myself for knowing it 100%. But Stephanie, what is up and coming for you? What's happening?
Well, I'm writing the third of the Five Turns universe novels at the moment. It's a pity it's not out for this time of year because it is set during Yule. I've gone back to the sort of early pagan idea of Yule. It's called Mother's Night, and I just wanted to play with the idea of the 12 days of Yule in there. So it'd be a folk horror set in the snow that you could read when it's cold outside, curl up with a cocoa, and just read this book and escape. So I'm writing that one at the moment. I've just signed a contract for a book called The Barricade with another publisher, Lycan Valley Press, and that's a post-apocalyptic sci-fi horror, which is, everyone has these end of the world scenarios, that the world is going to end, and the films say, right, it's ending. And I thought, well, what happens if they say that it's going to end, but it doesn't? So I created the idea that all the people, the great and the good, the wealthy, they would buy their place below ground in this bunker, and everybody else would be left to survive above. And the earth rights itself after about 10 years, and those below want to come back, but they're not allowed because those above said that you chose to go below, you cannot come back. It's the unbreakable law. And so they built this barricade around the entrance that people went down into, so people outside would look down from this barricade to those below because they could be seen on camera. And over the years, the barricade just grew and grew. So it's that idea of what happens, if those below who were in power before, they want to come out, reclaim their place in the whole system. What do those outside do? And was there any communication between them before? But it was just an idea to play with. So I've got that. I'm writing a horror novella in verse. It's a slasher. I'm not doing the slasher bits because I don't write extreme. But we're doing all sorts in that. Is sonnets and limericks and free verse, and it's turned out really well. So we're working on that at the moment. I've got a book out with a publisher. It's on submission, and I call it a dark historical fiction. It's set in 1649, women of the witch eye. So I'm hoping that might find a home. It's very much a bit about witchcraft, how women were treated at that particular time, and the various new religions that were appearing, because during 1649 the Quakers suddenly appeared, and my ancestors were actually amongst the first Quakers in this particular area, and they were imprisoned for their beliefs. So it's bringing in my own family history again with that one. And I think I've got another book that's on submission elsewhere. So I've got a few things on the go.
I love it. Just a few things out there in the world. Just a couple. Well, Stephanie, tell everybody what your holiday promotion is this holiday season.
Well, I'm going to show the cover again. I haven't got a print copy just yet. So yes, the woodcutter is going to be on offer with Bridget's Gate Press for 99¢. I believe they're doing pretty much a whole range of books at that offer. So the ones you see behind me, 5 Turns of the Wheel, Paused, Bottled and Reborn, they'll all be at the same prices. So there's a whole range. If you like gothic, if you like folk horror, if you like a bit of bio horror, there's a whole range there.
Oh, I love it. Well, Stephanie, thanks for taking time out of our evening to come and hang out and talk about the woodcutter and just everything that you are writing and where you're going. It's always so much fun to talk with you, Stephanie.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Absolutely. Well, you guys, don't worry. I know that tonight is over for the 12 Days of Page Turners, but tomorrow we have a whole new round of 4 new authors coming in with new holiday promotions, different genres, different stories. So tomorrow and tonight, you're not going to want to miss. So take advantage of these holiday promotions. Check the copy above or the comment section so you can go and take advantage for the reader in your family or for you. The best gift that you can give this holiday season is a new book, and to let people escape from reality and take them to new worlds, scary worlds at that, or to help your child recall and to find urban fantasies. So tonight, make sure that you take advantage of those. But join us tomorrow. But until then, bye for now, everybody.